All right, welcome to America This Week on Monday. I'm Matt Taibbi.
And I'm Walter Kern.
How's it going, Walter?
It's good in a lot of ways. It's confusing, though, because I went to my insurance company today and the 2026 calendars are already out, all the free tote bags and calendars and so on. Usually that happens in December, and it makes me feel that year to follow has started, but everything is starting earlier now, elections, years, and so on. So I've already got my 2026 desk calendar. I'm looking into the future,
Should I
hoping.
write my headstone?
Yeah, you should write your headstone. You should buy Patriot Supplies, not a sponsor. Food that lasts 10,000 years, and I'm thinking of actually getting out my Patriot Supply food from COVID and starting to eat it because I think it's gonna, hey kids, it's going to be a freeze dried macaroni and cheese Christmas. Because Dad bought $500 worth of it when he thought the world was going to end, and we've got our work cut out for us.
Exactly.
Also, Christmas is starting earlier, I think, this year. Don't you?
Is Christmas? How much longer is Christmas even going to be a thing anymore? I don't know.
Well, they compressed it. They compressed it a little under Biden, but now under Trump, I think they're taking up the slack, and Christmas is going to start in summer. And it's part of the return to our roots strategy.
There's a person around the corner from, well, let's just put it this way. I have a Chevy Chase fan somewhere in my neighborhood who's just jumped completely past Christmas and gone Thanksgiving and gone all the way to the full on massive Christmas lights thing. I kind of admire it, actually. It's a lot of effort. Anyway, this is a mentally healthier person than both you or me, because you and I are both in a state of abject confusion about what's going on, about everything. Like the overarching theme of this episode. Well, I have I'm beginning to develop a sort of unified field theory, which is that everything on the internet is like an op designed to make us miserable, confuse us, divide us, right down to the sudden appearance of instant influencer celebrities who couldn't possibly hold the ridiculous views that they do, but are massively popular somehow out of nowhere overnight, and then their existence suddenly becomes reported on.
Yes, and I told you earlier that when it's reported on in the British press first and most prominently, that's a sign that's a sign that the people who believe the world is run from the city of London might have something, because it is strange that this latest one, what's her name, Jennifer Welch or something?
Oh my God, Jennifer Welch, yeah.
The quote unquote sweary wine mom.
Yeah.
I hate the word sweary. I'll analyze why I hate it later, but first of all, it's hard to say. She was now launched almost without prelude, fanfare, or anything. Apparently she got big without all the people I know who follow these things even knowing who the hell she was.
Yeah, it just happened overnight. There was a Rolling Stone story about her like a couple of weeks ago, and the big quote was something about how, her show, I've Had It, is railing against all this toxic positivity. And I barely even remember what toxic I know it's stupid, but I had to go back and look up what kind of stupid it is. But simultaneous to that, the world is consumed with this seemingly straight out of WWE episode between Nick Fuentes, who could not possibly be a real person. I know I shouldn't say that out loud without having some kind of evidence in front of me, but
I think he should have to present evidence that he is real. I think anyone who is this popular, I mean, listen, he's been percolating for a while, but I've spoken to people who knew him before he was famous, who said he was unusually well financed, even in the years that he wasn't financed at all, apparently. And I have to say that I'm now of the belief that Occam's razors commands us to see people as ops first and then later maybe as innocent civilians.
That should be our default position now with anybody who appears on the internet.
Well, absolutely. So I had a theory a few years ago that I believe has actually been borne out, that the front page of newspapers, let's say the New York Times, is too valuable to be wasted on the truth. Okay. I'm not kidding you. They only have so much space. They only have 365 days. So anything that's above the fold in the New York Times has to pay for itself. And the truth does, and the truth is unpopular. We've learned that doing this show.
Yeah, I've learned that doing my site too. Yes, but anyway, go ahead.
Exactly. You know, you can make so much money on the truth, but if the truth were a playing card, it'd be like a 9. Okay, at best. It goes between a 9 and a 4. But so you have to have something that serves somebody, that helps somebody else, that synergizes with another player's agenda, such that you can, you know, draw only face cards above the fold, you know. And I am convinced that any place that has this much pre-built attention for it you're not going to waste on something that like just doesn't come to anything, because it's the truth, and the truth makes us all equal before institutions. It doesn't give them any advantage. So why would you default to it? You might, if you're forced to, like if there's a storm and everybody else is reporting it, and you know, you may as well too. But if it's something predictive, or you know, about a gray area that you can kind of claim authority in and make things happen, well, go for the op.
So, well, let's just talk about the current overweening story that's really not, I don't know. It is a story, I guess. It involves someone we both know very well, Tucker Carlson, but it's all over the news. Let's start with SOT2. This is CNN. It doesn't have a key player in this story, but this is a general overview of the whole thing.
An exclusive K-File investigation revealing the fierce backlash within the GOP against Tucker Carlson for his interview with controversial white nationalist and Holocaust denier Nick Fuentes. So now this controversy is rocking one of America's most influential conservative groups, the Heritage Foundation, which helped create Project 2025. Kevin Roberts is the president of Heritage, and he is in damage control. I mean, initially he defended Carlson's interview. It was an interview that drew bipartisan outrage over comments like this.
And I think that neoconservatism, where does it arise from? It arises from Jewish leftists who were mugged by reality when they saw the surprise attack in the Yom Kippur War.
Yeah, well, that's a lot of it for sure. But then, like, how do you explain Mike Huckabee, Ted Cruz, and there are a lot like that, John Bolton. I mean, I've known them all, George W. Bush, like Karl Rove. I mean, all people I know personally who I've seen like be seized by this brain virus, and they're not Jewish.
What you're saying about putting aside the tribal interest for the corporate interest, that's absolutely the case. The main challenge to that, a big challenge to that, is organized Jewry in America.
Okay.
So Roberts now says,
no, go ahead. Let's hear the
let's hear it out.
Says that he was wrong to defend Carlson over that interview, but maybe it is too late. I mean, Republican after Republican are now calling out both Carlson and Heritage.
All right. So that happened, and there's a PBS version that's a little bit more inclusive and specific. Can we see any of that? Is that possible? Anyway, while we wait for that, okay, this has become a huge deal within the Republican Party, and within generally speaking the conservative leaning internet space.
Right.
In the same way that certain other controversies have on the left, but let's just listen to what PBS has to say.
This week, a task force dedicated to fighting anti-Semitism reportedly decided to sever ties with the Conservative Heritage
First of all, can
Foundation.
we pause for a second?
It comes after the think.
What's your stance on what the proper way to hold a pen is when you're an anchor? Like,
Is that
she was holding it straight up at the beginning,
like you use it for writing, like you use it. I think you should hold it as though you have just actually written. And
right,
between a pen, glasses, and a piece of paper, that's really all you need now.
Really, yeah.
You bend the paper up, because see how she's got it bent up? Because if it's just flat, nobody can see it. Nobody can see I have documents.
Yeah.
And you have to hold the pen up. It can't just lay there.
No, it can't lay flaccid on the desk.
Is she gonna start writing in the middle of the thing? Is that why she needs it at the ready? Is she gonna throw it at somebody? As happened to me.
Well, Letterman did that. Remember that was his big shtick. Bill O'Reilly was a big fan of using paper as a prop. Like the sort of dynamic shuffling.
Oh, sure.
Who's the other guy? The guy who loves airplanes. It was on Brian Williams. He was another one who did that.
But didn't Jon Stewart, smack papers too?
Ironically, though,
I'm going to do it with my planner. Here's the thing: these people have to have the air of not reading teleprompters, which is what they do. Okay,
right.
So they have to have authorial. They have to have authorial bric-a-brac about. She should have a dictionary too that she uses when she writes her news bits. No,
right.
A library, right, all around her. They don't use pens. They don't write on them except to cross out things that maybe.
Don't fucking say that.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, they get something in their ear. Wait, don't say that. Wait, don't say that thing.
And by the way, folks, one of my first jobs in journalism was an intern for a tiny TV station in the Hudson River Valley, and I used to write TV scripts. So I used to watch anchors writing on those pages and crossing out my text as they were looking at the next segment. So they do that.
Matt, I just had an idea that will make our show as big as Nick Fuentes or Jennifer Welch. I had it. It's great. Have you seen these stories about these strange, they look like crash test dummy style robots covered in fabric? Have you seen them?
No.
Well, even the Optimus, even the shiny white plastic Musk robot. Let's make our third person a robot.
A robot. That's a good idea. Like a Mystery Science Theater. Yeah.
But we'll have the robot and it will get an AI feed of everything we're talking about. And then it will say in a robot voice, actually, Matt, Nick Fuentes was born in Chicago in 1989. What? If there is,
I want a belligerent AI robot.
Okay. Your dad did her kind of job. He was more out there. But if there is one profession in America that could be robotically replaced, and probably should be instantly, it's hers.
Oh, absolutely. That's why Max Headroom, I forget the name of that Canadian actor who did that so well.
He had too much personality.
He did. Yeah, you're right.
This has to be straight delivery from something that actually doesn't have a mouth.
All right, I'm sorry. Let's go back to the story quickly.
Okay.
Right, yeah, let's press play.
Tank's president, Kevin Roberts, defended Tucker Carlson's interview with a far-right anti-Semitic activist. This infighting has laid bare a growing schism within conservative circles over how to address anti-Semitism. William Brangham reports.
Nick Fuentes, thank you for doing this.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
I wanted to meet you.
The interview, which lasted over 2 hours, was posted late last month and has been seen over 20 million times. The conservative commentator Tucker Carlson interviewing Nick Fuentes, the 27-year-old hard-right influencer with millions of followers known as Groypers. Fuentes is known for his open racism,
White people have a special heritage here as Americans.
his misogyny, like when he wrote, "Your body, my choice," after the 2024 election.
The whole political system is just based around women never being accountable for any of their choices.
And his overt anti-Semitism, ranging from Holocaust denial to his belief in a global Jewish conspiracy.
A big challenge to that is organized Jewry in America. I don't think
The interview with Carlson drew quick, sharp condemnation from many in the conservative movement. Ben Shapiro, editor of the conservative Daily Wire, wrote, "No to the Groypers, no to the cowards like Tucker Carlson who normalize their trash."
Christians can critique the state of Israel without being anti-Semitic.
But Kevin Roberts, head of the Heritage Foundation, defended Carlson. Heritage is the influential conservative think tank behind Project 2025, and which has long supported Israel and America's support
Okay,
for
all right,
it.
we get it.
Robert,
All right. So, all right.
Okay, I'm not going to
What if-
defend.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm not going to defend Fuentes, but I don't give a damn about defending or not. I'll just tell you what I think. First of all, that report was a little bit strange. They all kept calling him the Holocaust denier. I want to see the proof. I mean, I don't know enough about Nick Fuentes. I want to see the quote where he denies the Holocaust.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised because what little I have seen of him is
I wouldn't be
way out there.
Well, then they should show it if it's so abundant. Show it.
Well, for instance, let's have the one where he talks about Hitler being kind of far out. Do we have that? Let's see. It's here somewhere. Oh, that he was. Here he is talking about how Hitler's been used as a buzzword for 80 years to prevent anyone from talking about Jewish influence. So that's, let's see, where are we? That is SOT 11 if we got it. But you don't have to look far. Like the whole point of Nick Fuentes is the utter lack of subtlety in anything that he does, and he seems to rush into totally bizarre, highly viral positions as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
But anyway, here's an example.
Hitler has been used as a buzzword for 80 years to prevent anybody from talking about any of this. Whenever anybody says that Jewish people have too much influence in the Western world, they say Hitler. Whenever somebody says it's maybe a bad idea for America to become majority non-white, people say Hitler. Whenever anybody says we need a strong executive that can actually do things, that can actually send people back over the border, they say Hitler. So we're defanging that. That has no power over us. Hitler, Nazi, these are particular words from a particular time that hold no weight over us. That holds no weight over me. I'll call them cool. I'll say the uniforms look cool. I'll say whatever I want about it. That's not my moral language. I don't care about any of that.
Well,
We want the fathers back in the home. We want God back in society. We want the nation to be strong. And yes, by the way, we want the country to be majority white. And you can say Hitler until you're blue in the face. I still want those things. I don't care. Nobody cares.
So Matt, remember last week when I was telling you how I resented having to explain to the Mamdani faction why the Soviet Union was a worthy enemy and not somebody we should have retrospectively wished would have won? And my analysis was that now we are dealing with a leadership generation that doesn't remember what you and I consider history.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Well, here's the right-wing version of that. People who feel free from, it's sort of like, I wasn't around, so I don't have to obey the shibboleths. I don't you can treat them as shibboleths, the facts, let's say. I wasn't around, so I am therefore free of all this baggage, and I can use it in the present tense to fight all kinds of battles and will not be burdened by the associations of previous generations. That's what he's asserting is his right, and that's kind of what Mamdani is asserting is his right versus, communism and Soviet Union and so on. And now you and I, having committed the ultimate crime of having lived over 50 years old, have to sit and bear this, or not bear it. But I'll say this. Okay, there's anti-Semitism all around me right now. There really is. It's on the left. It parades on the left. It has worked its way into the Gaza protests and so on, and now it exists on the right. And it is a very old-fashioned kind of, they never explain through what instruments they control the world.
Well, AIPAC, yes, they do. Yeah.
Well, AIPAC, this lobbying organization that spends X is all it takes to control the world.
There is a non-zero. There is a statistically significant amount of people in what I would call the old legacy media on the left side that believes that. But it's also now popping up all over the place on the right, which is. And I don't know what to think about it, but anyway, go ahead.
Well, anyway, I'll tell you what I really think about it. I think it's a division technology. I think it's meant to keep populist elements from forming new coalitions around real issues, like how our country is financed, how it acts abroad, how our economy works, how big industries like healthcare and pharma work. People say UFOs, that's a big distraction. This is the ultimate distraction. It prevents groups that could otherwise cohere from talking to each other. Take a stand for or against. And it has largely happened as a popular phenomena, as a widespread, since the election of Donald Trump. Trump isn't participating, you'll notice. He isn't. I think Trump properly sees this as a threat to his coalition. It is.
Well, it is. It's massively a threat to his coalition.
And when the New York Times does something like put a, very attractive photo of Nick Fuentes at the front of a story using their patented ultra high density black and white photography that they used to make January 6th look spooky. Only now they're using it to make Nick Fuentes look romantic and interesting. And when they say he is the heir to Charlie Kirk, I sense major op, because he's not the heir to Charlie Kirk. He's not.
He's the opposite of Charlie Kirk.
Right. And so this is somebody explained to me once that there's a term of art called shit staining in the intelligence world. You shit stain somebody by association. And so now they've got this guy who has a huge following. He does. And especially among young people who are seen as the future of both parties. He's kind of the right-wing Luigi in a way. He's the radical who everybody can't ignore. Whether you like him or hate him, you got to pay attention. And that was the argument I think that Tucker made. Whether you like him or hate him, I'm a journalist. Let's get him on. Let's see what he believes. Now, I, in general, believe that you should be able to have anybody on you want. That's what we do, and they got on Tucker for interviewing Putin back when. And
that's interviewing Putin's different.
Well, I know. But the question is it, see, we live in this world where popularity is itself a story. So people say, like, are you platforming him, or are you just discussing a phenomena that got so big you couldn't ignore it? And you can use sophistry to say, hey, I'm just, I'm asking questions. I just want to see what the guy thinks.
Reporting the controversy. That was what we used to call it.
Reporting the controversy. Right. In general, I think this is going somewhere very bad. I think that it is, as I say, a distraction from the real issues of our time, which have to do with, globalized industry, questions about income disparity, intervention abroad, and so on. The problem with anti-Semitism, and that, whatever you want to call it, is that it is an all-purpose conspiracy theory in which every ill in your society can be blamed on this group of a few million supposed conspirators. You can blame immigration on it. You can blame, the Federal Reserve policy on it. You can blame anything that Wall Street does on it. You can blame
Hollywood.
Right. You can blame anything that happens in the Middle East on it. You can blame anything that happens on Hollywood on it. And some would say, Walter, you just converted me. Nick Fuentes is right. But the only reason you can blame everything on it is because you can trace some crooked line to someone with a Jewish last name. In most fields of modern life, you can. I guess that's the penalty for being successful.
Yeah, I guess so. I grew up in a part of the country where there were a lot of Jewish people. I never really saw anti-Semitism all the way through probably college. And not until I got to Russia, where it's it's like endemic. I mean, the jokes there about Jews are open and everywhere. But
Matt, I had the same experience. I grew up in a place where there were no anti-Semitism at all. Minnesota. There were Jews, but you didn't really know it. Then I got out to Princeton University, and they were in 1980 when I got there. Oddly segregated on the campus. Really, they were. I mean, kosher dining was a self-segregation thing because Princeton social life is organized around where you eat at night. If you want to eat kosher, you ate at a special place. But in general, I started to notice a flutter of it as I went up the socioeconomic ladder in America. And it was the old kind of anti-Semitism from the movie Gentleman's Agreement, like, keep them out of our country clubs kind of stuff. When I really saw it was when I went to England and when I went to Oxford. Then there among the British upper classes, I saw shameless anti-Semitism. Shameless. And it was of the extremely aristocratic kind. If you know your Bible, you know that Joseph basically became Pharaoh's accountant. He went to Egypt and he said, listen, man, if you store all the grain, we'll have it when the crash comes. And of course, that made Pharaoh the master of all the Middle East, and Joseph's poor starving family had to come down from Canaan or Judea or whatever they were to get food because, Pharaoh's accountant had been so prophetic. The British believed that Jews should exist in advisory positions. But once they moved into leadership positions, it wasn't good. We've never had a Jewish president in America.
No.
For people who run the world, they somehow, didn't manage that. Anyway, it's a all-purpose theory that is a lot like the UFO conspiracy. We're being manipulated by aliens, and I think it's gone way too far. It's broken up groups that on the left and the right, I think that the state doesn't really like particularly. Right.
I'm sorry. I'm so shocked by this comment at Goba44. Conflating protesting the modern day Holocaust in Gaza with anti-Semitism is a well-paid job.
Then why aren't we getting paid for it?
Yeah, exactly. Look, when you get up there and you start saying things like, I can say Hitler is cool. I like the uniforms, and and I still think God should be in the homes and there should be fathers, and you're deliberately stirring up shit.
But he is deliberately stirring up shit. And Matt, see, what he's doing is he's taking his anti-Semitic tropes and he's putting them next to what are less controversial conservative goals, family formation and so on. So he's shit staining the whole platform by saying it somehow flows. It's either being stopped by Jews or it serves them or whatever. The left does the same thing, and the guy who just showed us that he's a conspiracy theorist. He assumed we're getting paid by these interests. We're not. So you're wrong. Somebody has misled you into thinking that the only positions available on this are those of people who are paid mouthpieces. They aren't. So you don't know anything. Number two, the main reason this exists right now is, I think, because the populist fervor in America, on the right and on the left too, has gotten to a point where divisive elements are trying to manage it, and they're managing it by making it beyond the pale. The problem is that as we saw there, the left has a moralistic anti-Semitism. It has to do with Holocaust in Gaza. They literally imported the moral authority that came from the real Holocaust. On the right, it's a little bit murkier. It's a little bit more protocols of elders of Zion, it's banking and things like that. The left insists its anti-Semitism is upright. So does the right.
What, and evidence-based.
Evidence-based.
Yeah. And okay. So generally speaking, I would, if you work in the media business, if you work in the internet eyeball generating business, you probably started noticing 4 or 5 years ago that the appearance of a certain kind of character whose support seemed to come out of nowhere, who had unknown backers, and there was a new type of story that you had to worry about, which was this guilt by association thing, where people would say, you believe the same thing as this person, or you appeared on a show with this person, but I've started to wonder whether people are being like, that's the entire purpose of some of these internet personalities is just to get next to movements, to different figures. I don't know, but it's within the conservative side, in the same way that there are some other figures we're going to talk about on the other side that have done the same thing. This Tucker Fuentes thing has become a huge schism. And really the spokesperson for this has been Ben Shapiro, pushing back on, allowing Fuentes to be a figure of significance in the conservative movement. So let's look at SOT 4 and see what he says.
The issue here isn't that Tucker Carlson had Nick Fuentes on his show last week. He has every right to do that, of course. The issue here is that Tucker Carlson decided to normalize and fluff Nick Fuentes, and that the Heritage Foundation then decided to robustly defend that performance. Those who criticize both Tucker and Heritage aren't canceling. They are quite properly drawing a moral line. So, for those who don't understand what's going on, let's begin with Nick Fuentes. Now, as I mentioned, last week, Tucker Carlson had on Nick Fuentes. Fuentes is a 27-year-old man who's dubbed himself the leader of a movement called the Groypers. He has a large audience of alienated young white men in particular, and he's earned increased media attention over the course of the past few years, especially over the last year. Now, from Tucker Carlson's interview, you might have gathered that Fuentes has some borderline views on race, a peculiar obsession with what he calls organized Jewry, and a rather sad relationship with the female sex. But probably you came away thinking that, for the most part, Fuentes lives on the radical edge of normality. You think that if you watch the interview, because Tucker Carlson decided that it was important not only to host Fuentes, but to smooth over his views, water them down, and make them far more palatable to a normal audience. As we'll discuss in a bit, this is what Tucker Carlson does for a living.
That's kind of scary because he interviewed both of us.
Listen,
so did Ben, but
Walter Kern will go down, into poverty and political persecution with all his cards on the table. The time for me getting rich is over. It's just time to, get out the name of the true killer. And here's the thing. Number one, they call it the woke right. I didn't understand that term at first.
I struggled with it too, but I get it now.
A guy named James Lindsay coined it. James is unpopular with everybody right now after being pretty popular with a lot of people, because this term, I think, embarrassed the people who he was describing as the woke right. And here's why I understand it now. Ben Shapiro just used the word normalize. Okay.
Exactly, which is a term that we all it sent chills up your spine if you were in media.
Yeah,
On
exactly.
the other side 8 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. That was a tool of the left. You were normalizing something if you even discussed it. Now this group, number two, I hate to say it. This isn't my position, but I'm going to say it. People are going to hate Israel for reasons that have to do with the wars Israel fights, the competition that it has with the countries around it, its influence in America, which is the influence of a group who have many dual citizens, the influence of a group that is holding its own as a kind, traditionally held its own as almost a kind of military base or an ally in the great sea of the, remember before the Iraq war, we didn't have a lot going on over there. We pretty much had to depend on Israel. We didn't have our own base in Baghdad. We didn't have these things. So I hate to say it, Ben, but people are going to hate Israel, and you're going to have to deal with it. They're going to dislike it just like they might dislike Great Britain.
I think he does know that, and listening to Ben recently on this, he's talked a lot about how he's been upfront about how he thinks the United States shouldn't be funding Israel, in this Gaza business, that there shouldn't be that connection. I think he understands that quite well, but I
was playing the devil's advocate for versus him, so I could come around to another form of agreement with him, which is this language of normalization and this friend enemy distinction thinking and so on was the property of the left. Now it's come over to the right. I think it's a bad idea in general. I think the right should work by rightist principles, which are market-based. And in a market-based analysis of this, what you're seeing is a demand for this kind of rhetoric. Where is it coming from? He noted it. It's coming from, he claims, young white males without prospects. Okay? In other words, Nick Fuentes didn't create it. What created it was not having fucking jobs or good jobs. What created it was income disparity. What created it was the fentanyl and before it, the OxyContin crisis that ruined a lot of these communities when they were in a post-industrial vulnerable stage. In other words, if you are a conservative, you address the demand for the product, not the fucking fact that somebody made the product. If people are so desperate, so hopeless, so cynical, so checked out, we all understood when you and I were young that the way the story was told was that the appeal of Hitler came from the humiliating conditions of the Versailles Treaty, which left Germany culturally humiliated and economically devastated. And that out of that and out of the kind of Weimar Republic culture, which substituted just extreme sensation and anger and say perversity for healthy, economically sound, formation of a stable society. Shouldn't Ben be concerned about those things? Shouldn't all conservatives and left-wingers and everybody finally be concerned with the conditions in a country which gives rise to this stuff? And frankly, in that respect, I'm pro-Trump, because Trump's thesis has been so far that the deindustrialization of America, the globalization of the economy, and the financialization, it was until recently, I don't know how well he's delivering on this, but are threats that need to be addressed by onshoring industry. He thinks tariffs, et cetera, et cetera. That's covering the demand side of kookiness. And I tell you, Ben Shapiro, you can make, and everybody, you can make 1,000 laws about who's allowed to speak and who's allowed to go, where, and culturally we can, anathematize and vilify the mouthpieces of this thing. But open some damn plants, or raise average incomes versus cost of living, and so on, and watch this all sort of moderate.
Yeah, that makes sense. When we talked about this when that movie about incels came out. I'm sorry, I forget the name of the director who did but anyway, the point of it was that this class of sort of young, disaffected men who were, being vilified as potential mass shooters who had an affection for guns, who couldn't get a girlfriend and spent all their time online, that this was a product of a society with no upward mobility and a lack of opportunity, and when you looked at it sympathetically and just listened to what these people were saying, they didn't sound so crazy suddenly. They sounded like young people who had problems that were real. And yeah, I get that. I totally get that. On the other hand, there is a point at which a party like the Republican Party can't survive if it has open associations with the Nazi Party, right, or with Hitler or something like that.
But it hasn't, Matt. In other words, up until the last election, when they were using Hitler against Trump and everything, and we were calling it out. Here's the deal. Yes, Hitler and Nazi and so on are vastly overused weapons from the left and mostly absurd. But somehow they got the bright idea that they were going to start being worthy of them.
Yeah. I don't know where that idea came from.
I don't think it came from a good place, and I think it came from a control place. And I've had people tell me and explain this whole phenomena going back about a year now as a concerted attempt to divide this populist movement. And I think it is. It reminds, are we all in prison now? Do we all have to have a gang? Are you only secure if you have a gang?
Because, well, yeah, that is the way it is playing out. For sure.
Because you know where these ideas are most fervently held and have been, and where they sort of went to ground for a long time? Prison. This is the stuff of tattoos. This is the stuff of gangs. This is the stuff of, I've lived my whole adult life in Montana, where a place that is constantly accused of being some hotbed of Nazism and white supremacy and all this bullshit, because there's some little place up on the tip of northern Idaho where they had a Nazi compound in the old days, that got confiscated by the feds. This is a language and a vocabulary and so on that is used to take people's eyes off their own interests. That's how I see it.
Yeah. And for @Bart9349, who's complaining that we're talking about this instead of Mamdani, like I think these are parallel phenomena, that they exist on all sides of the populist spectrum.
I took pains in the beginning of this show to make that point. In other words, I said there are going to be two anti-Semitic parties. We have discussed the left all the time, Matt, to the point where you're accused of, being something like Fuentes, practically.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
There is no winning with this. How can I put it? This map. If you go over here, you're a Jew lover. If you go over here, you're an anti-Semite. If you go over here, you're a Holocaust denier. If you go over here, like every square has its own toxic brand and will stain you. And I am accused of whatever I'm being accused of because I won't stand in their squares. I won't recognize their squares. And I don't believe that they represent the last word on reality. They don't.
Right. Well, look, that's a problem you and I have had generally. I think the internet landscape is particularly hostile to people who don't like to be or easily categorized.
It's not
and-
just the landscape that's hostile to it. I think the powers that be are hostile to it. I think the last thing the powers that be, and I believe that there are powers that be, I've met them, I've shaken their damn hands. Why do I have to pretend they don't exist? Would rather Americans and anyone not coalesce across lines that they haven't drawn themselves. And one of the reasons they call it podcasting, I was telling you this earlier today on a phone call. Broadcasting was the idea. You got everybody kind of together. Okay. You got them all into a middling consensus. And that's how you directed the ship of state and society, by getting everybody sort of to form a big center. Podcasting, the word pod was an odd choice. Pod basically means tribe, or, something small, island.
Yeah,
Well,
or a pot of whales, but anyway, yeah,
a pot of whales, exactly.
Yeah.
That's where it comes from. And the reason they named that is you can get the same control effect by controlling all the pods, as long as people stay in their pod. In other words, we now have a networked and more sophisticated and information-rich and communicative society, so that if there are 100 pods, it's fine. In fact, in some ways, it's better than the old thing, because you had to kind of be plausible to gain consensus. You can create pods where, there's the flat earthers over here, and there's the, extreme ecologists and environmentalists over here. As long as everybody stays in them, you can pit them against each other. You can keep them moving. It's like directing traffic,
Right.
Get that a little faster, get that a little slower, merge these two, But it only works if you can get people to stay inside them.
right.
And making everything suddenly about Jews and so on is a way of forcing people into pods. And the reason we're loath to discuss it is it wasn't formative in our vision of the world. And suddenly we're told it must be the first thing you consider, and the way you define yourself, for, against, in the middle. And we don't want to play, because I don't want to play the game of being traffic in their traffic control center.
Well, look, okay, and here's another big topic that intersects with things that we've talked about for years now. I mean, one of the main themes of the Twitter file stuff that that I didn't really get to in real time, because what we basically did at the beginning is we looked at as many things as we could, and we put them in piles and said, well, there's this topic, this topic, this topic. This is broad and it will take time, and all those things got set aside because we had an emphasis that we were trying to do on speed, putting reports out as quickly as possible. Now, the idea there was that it would help deflect the inevitable propaganda campaigns against anything we put out. So as a result, we sidelined some really important themes in the documents. One of which was about international agreements, the effort to create common global databases of offenders, but more importantly, there was an idea about reducing all news stories to simple binary narratives, and which was an exact opposite understanding of how we used to view the news. Like, the news used to be an esoteric collection of facts that the average news consumer was assumed to be a person who might have had some views over here and some views over here and some views that were totally off the grid, and that was normal. The whole direction of sort of digital information and how the modern internet is constructed, it's designed to constantly identify you as one of two things, right? Yes. And to move you in certain directions through highly emotionally charged stories that are fed to you. And if you go in one direction, you get more content like that. sent to you, and you end up in an ever smaller universe of topics that are simplistic and black and white. And we've seen one after the other story like this, from Russiagate, COVID.
Come on,
right?
dude. Listen, this whole Nick Fuentes, whatever you want to call the whole thing, this is the new COVID.
Right.
It's the new Ukraine. It's the new flag-worthy thing that you have to either deny or not deny, and wear a sticker or not wear a sticker, or wear a sticker against. One after the other. One of my killer arguments about things when I'm involved with a true believer in one of these current things is to ask them what the evidence is. And back in Russiagate, I got in trouble because they couldn't come up with any. So I said, you know what? I'm going to just lay off the Putin and Trump are, working in concert thing, because it's a pretty big charge and you don't have any evidence for it. So it's not that I'm going to tell you you're absolutely wrong. I'm just going to say, I'm going to wait. Okay. And in the meantime, I'm going to presume that, like every other single story in the world that doesn't have evidence, it could or could not be true. Then, right. And then comes COVID. And early on in COVID, Matt, I will suggest that I was the world's biggest COVID skeptic from the beginning to the end. I mean, literally from the beginning and the end. I felt it in my bones. Wait, these are the same people tried to sell me Russiagate. And
right.
And they're doing it with videos from China of people falling over in train stations. Those are really, when in the history of propaganda have they used like weird cryptic videos to get you launched in a completely passionate way on an, irreversible course?
Right.
And they already know that it came from like a bat cave. How? Prove it. So I just don't participate. Okay. And then came Ukraine, and now we've got this damn thing. Maybe I skipped one in between. Maybe they had one that I completely.
No, there have been like 30 of them. I just can't remember them. I mean, there are so many different things.
The trans
exactly.
business, the trans business was, you had to have a fucking opinion.
Right.
And if you didn't have opinion, you were against. Okay. The default was with Russiagate. See, here's the thing that these all have in common. If you want to sit it out, you're the enemy. And when that happens, it is diagnostic that you're in one of these mass formation moments.
Because mass formation, psychosis, permission structure, the thing.
Right. Mm-hmm. Oh, you want to remain neutral? Well, then you're the enemy until you come around.
Right. Yeah. And why, why this is being done, why these characters appear, I don't know. It's very strange. You and I both know Tucker. I haven't asked him about this. He's had some things to say about it already. Let's hear what Tucker said. This is SOT 3. Tucker talking to Megyn Kelly. See what he says.
And then I got all these calls from people saying, do you know anything about, I don't know anything really about Nick Fuentes, other than he's attacking my dad, my wife, and my son. And it was like, actually, Nick Fuentes is the single most influential commentator among young men. Like, period.
He's got 5 million subscribers on Rumble.
It's bonkers. And I didn't know any of it. I mean, I'm 56, so I'll just state the obvious, like
he's not our demo.
My oldest child is 31, like much older than Nick Fuentes. So I kind of missed a lot of this stuff. I pride myself on not missing things. I totally missed that. Really? And then it turns out that, he has no advertisers. They've been trying to cancel him since freshman year in college. Ben Shapiro actually tried to shut him down freshman year in college. And it didn't work. In fact, it had the opposite effect. So I was like, And so I talked to a million people I know, like, maybe I should interview Nick Fuentes to hear what is this actually? And so I decided to do it.
So the main pushback has been, when you had Jeffrey Dahmer or the Ku Klux Klan, or et cetera, these journalists went after them, like exposed the terrible things. And Nick Fuentes has said, a long list of very vile things.
Big time, including attacking my dad, which was the most vile of all, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, I personally have watched videos of him questioning the Holocaust, likening it to baking cookies in the oven, and there's no way you could have gotten to 6 million, seems to be his theory. He seems to think that we've way overstated the number of Jews killed in the Holocaust. He's ripped on poor Usha Vance in the most offensive terms, which I mean, so what do you say to those people? Say, why didn't you raise any of that?
You know, do your own interview the way that you want to do it. You're not my editor. Buzz off. I mean, I don't know. You want to go yell at Nick Fuentes? I'll give you his cell. Call him and go sit and yell at him and feel virtuous or whatever. That's up to you. I got the same thing with Putin. Why aren't you yelling at him?
Yeah. I hear it. I don't know.
See, Matt, there are so many problems that lack of success has spared me. Like, you know,
yeah, exactly.
Should I or should I not interview Putin? Should I or should I not interview the leader of the?
I would gladly interview Putin, but
it's all academic for me, man. I mean, will he buy me a ticket? Here's the thing: these are ultimately media. We cover a lot of media controversies, and to some extent, media has penetrated everybody's lives. It's right in their hand. It used to be in their living room. They had to go turn it on, but right now it's in their pocket and it is on. So they are legitimate areas of concern, but they are also, by their nature, political ops. I mean, come on. This doesn't flow from the ground and from people's conditions and from people's well-being. It flows from the top. It's an internecine struggle among the cool kids who have millions of viewers. like, give me 500,000 and I'll take you all on. But, you know, they all know the stats, and that shows in a weird way why they're interested in him, because in their ecosystem, it's pretty fascinating how somebody gets to 5 million. What I found interesting with Tucker was he said he doesn't have any visible means of support. Like, he doesn't do ads. He doesn't do anything. Let's dwell on that for a second.
Right.
When a woman in town used to have no visible means of support, and yet she just dressed well and so on, the presumption used to be that she did something for a living.
Yeah, well, certainly there are a lot of people. There's certainly a phenomenon of people who appear with podcasts and are suddenly awash in a certain kind of media support and become instant celebrities overnight. And I always wonder about that phenomenon a little bit. You know, as opposed to the process where it takes you 10, 15 years to build up an audience, whatever it is. But maybe I'm just jealous. I don't know. Maybe that's just the way it works.
Matt, Matt, don't be jealous, because this true story. Last weekend, a homeless dude, confessedly homeless, on the streets of Salt Lake City, said, "I love your and Matt's content." To me. No, I'm not kidding. He was hanging out with the other dudes. They were all doing their thing. And he went, "Hey man, I've seen you," and I was like, "What?" And he said, "I love your and Matt's content." And then he went back to, you know, Mogan David.
What's Mogan David?
Oh, it's a form of cheap wine that people on the street.
Oh, it's like Brass Monkey or something like that.
Yeah, like Thunderbird or something.
Right. That's excellent. So that brings us to the Jennifer Welch phenomenon. Now, we have another unified field theory that we're going to get to at some point.
Yeah.
Which is that there's a gigantic op to make all of us miserable and then sell happiness back to us.
Absolutely. Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm going to preface it with this. Walter, I'm a periodic radical. So every once in a while, I just become radical and I go to a protest because I get really worked up. Right now, it's animal rights because of the Canadians killing all these fucking ostriches with machine
Oh my God.
guns.
Anyway, go ahead. Yes.
Okay. So periodically, I get worked up and I cross the line and get all, I don't carry signs, but I get like that. And when I was at the Standing Rock reservation protest years ago, which was about an oil pipeline going across the Missouri River just north of a Indian reservation, and they were afraid there'd be a spill and the water would come down and wreck their whole place. I was talking to an old Sioux Indian, and he said, my grandfather told me that someday they're going to take the water and sell it back to us in bottles. And I said, yeah. Was his name Old Man Prophet? Because he's absolutely right. And my new vision is they're going to take away our happiness and sell it back to us in pills, and sell it back to us on morning shows aimed at women with new esoteric antidepressants that I saw advertised when I was just down in Salt Lake City. I mean, so I think it's perfectly normal to wonder if what my friend calls the immiseration of the United States is not just the first step in selling us patent medicine
in a two-stage process. Just quickly before we get to the before you forget about the ostrich story, I just have to show you a piece of video that is I think one of the funnier news leads that I've seen. This is CBC covering the shooting of these 330 ostriches, and watch the correspondent Caroline, I think it's Bargu, trying to describe what happened in front of a gigantic wall of hay bales without using words like kill or dead. She has to express what happened to the ostriches.
And the latest developments at Universal Ostrich Farms. The Canadian Food Inspection Agency has now confirmed it's finished its cull of the farm's resident flock. It was ordered because of an avian flu outbreak last year. The CBC's Caroline Bargut is at the farm in Edgewood.
Right now, it is very quiet here. It's actually eerily quiet. We had been here a few times over the past few weeks, and we always would see ostriches. And now we're not seeing ostriches
because they're all fucking dead.
The Canadian Food Inspection Agency has said that it has completed the cull of the ostriches, and it said last night several of my colleagues from Radio Canada were here.
So, dude, it's not in a cull you leave some alive, okay? In a cull you take the weak. You don't go in. Okay, you're gonna see Walter in a form you've never seen him. Animal rights, Walter. In a call, you don't go in for hours with rifles and blast and kill all these animals that weigh almost what humans weigh, that stand as tall as humans, some of which are in their 30s, 40s years old. The Canadian government encircling these ostrich people, these ostrich farm
owners,
farm owners, taking over their farm, forming a firing squad and slaughtering these things with guns is, to me, the most ominous thing that's happened in a couple of years. I can see her standing in front of my town, Livingston, Montana. When I used to come to Livingston, Montana, it was a lively place with full bar rooms and music in the streets. But for some reason, it's very quiet now because they fucking killed everybody, dude.
I know. I mean, we used to see ostriches, and she's standing in front of a gigantic wall of hay bales that was put up by the RMs, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police.
She's
so that you couldn't see the ostriches. Anyway,
right. And dude, they had Thunderdome in there, ostrich Thunderdome. And why are you dressed like some kind of cross between a Parisian and a Native American lady? Why are you wearing all this fur and weird shit with your long hair? Because you're trying to create a sense of sort of like Aboriginal authenticity. You should be dressed in pure fucking white mylar because you represent the future of the anti-human, anti-biological control force that's going to sweep down with drones and take us fucking out. Because
I just thought that language. We used to come here and see ostriches. Now we don't see ostriches. That's how you tell somebody that they killed a whole bunch of ostriches.
Dude, she should be standing in front of Dachau. Dachau used to be a lively place full of industry. People woke early and went about their jobs. You know, sometimes you would hear guards yelling, and sometimes you would hear them screaming back. Now it's oddly quiet.
It's eerily quiet. So then she goes on, and then she says this really. She does talk about the shooting.
This guy's funny. She would know if she took her tape. Okay, that had to be said. You're right.
Yeah. So, but then there's a line that she delivers about where the birds are now. But let's just hear it out.
And they heard shots fired. They heard 5 rounds with about 12 shots in each of those rounds. I was also hearing one of the supporters talking to another person, and he said he was here till midnight and had heard hundreds of shots.
Yeah, because that's how it would take to kill 300 fucking ostriches.
Said that it had consulted with experts and decided that experienced marksmen would be the best and most appropriate and most humane option to use. So they brought in professional marksmen to conduct this cull on this property. We know that the birds are still on the property. We don't know where they will be.
The birds' corpses are on the property.
I know, she left out a little minor detail about the birds. I mean, you would want to comment on their relative state of aliveness in that moment.
Every one of those skilled marksmen, first of all, they weren't that skilled, because I have dug deeper into this. Those birds took time to die. Okay, lady, with your faux, whatever, Chippewa outfit there, standing for the earth. No, you are part of the Space Force that's coming to kill our fucking birds. And the Canadians used to be kindly and soft-hearted people. But their soft-heartedness has turned into this weird double-speak callousness in which they can't even mourn. Okay, say I agree with you that you had a good pretext for slaughtering all these ostriches with guns at night.
Right.
They did it. Why did you do it at night? Why didn't you do it during the day?
Why did you erect a wall of hay bales?
We want to see. We want to see. I mean, if it's such a good excuse, then you can do it in the day. And your cameras should have been there. Aren't you pissed that you have to rely on 2 witnesses as to how many shots were fired? Your first witness is 5 rounds of 12. Okay, I can add and I can multiply. That's 60 shots. You can't kill that's worse than the JFK assassination. That means one bullet has to go through like 5 ostriches.
The magic ostrich bullet.
Right. Yeah, they only shot once. The bullet just ricocheted around and hit all the ostriches. Number 2, one guy said he had heard hundreds. Okay, that's the guy you should quote, not the other guy, because the other guy just launched an impossibility. The second guy said something that's somewhat plausible. It's probably thousands, however, because I, a hunter, have shot gophers, just little tiny gophers, okay? And I'm not proud of it. I used to do it almost for sport, because you had to get rid of them somehow on these farms. Sometimes it would take 3 shots to wipe out one freaking gopher, and we had scopes. I know that those ostriches went down hard, went down suffering, went down bleeding, went down complaining. It was an awful thing that you did. And Canada, you tried to pull a fucking sheet over it before the body was even cold. Shame on you.
They were putting kill boxes, apparently. I don't know. It was horrible. But
every one of those marksmen who shot an ostrich is now that much closer to being able to shoot a person.
Yeah. So at Kate Work here as says, let's talk about MAID. And the original reason I brought up the ostriches is because there is another topic in Canada where they also use Orwellian language, and this is the Medical Assistance in Dying program, aka MAID. And I had no idea that this was this had gone so far. So in 2021, essentially Canada amended its assisted suicide laws to end the restrictions to people whose deaths were what was the term they used, who could be reasonably foreseeable, whose deaths were reasonably foreseeable. So now you could be you were eligible for assisted, what they called assisted dying, if you were in a grievous and irremediable medical condition. So you could have a prognosis that would allow you to live for decades.
But now that includes psychological conditions now,
Well,
Matt.
not yet. Not purely.
Not purely.
Yeah. So they're not. That's been put off till 2017.
Oh,
But
so-
already 1 in 20 deaths in Canada are assisted deaths. So in 2023, 1 out of every 20 people who died in Canada died through assisted dying. So it's one of the major causes of death already in the country, and they haven't even expanded it yet.
And Matt, you're wondering why they're depressing us?
Well, I mean, this is the thing. There are so many things out there in the news that are bumming people out. That are driving them to, I would say, extreme forms of politics. Everybody seems to be miserable. The happiest people in the world, people who should be the happiest people in the world, just can't talk about anything except about how victimized and miserable they are,
including Michelle Obama.
I actually read her book, Look, this over the weekend. Well, I read most of it.
Who knew what agony she was in the whole time, because she had to do things like have people dress her and give her makeup.
She talked about just the insuperable pressure she was under. I mean, it was very tough to read. But this whole thing where, I mean, they're about to open up this program to people who are just merely depressed, right?
I know
that's scheduled for St. Patrick's Day in 2017, and
St. Patty's Day. You know why? Because the day after St. Patty's Day, people are fucking depressed, especially the people who celebrate it. Man, right. Oh right. Shit! I ruined my marriage, and I threw up all over my one good suit, and oh man, hey, there's a chamber right over there,
and So I also wonder whether they're, some of these internet personalities that are popping up just seem geared to telling you how fucking horrible things are all the time and how inaccessible happiness is. Like, so this character I didn't even know she existed until recently. Jennifer Welch. She's got a show. She's on a podcast that's called "I've Had It," and as you mentioned, she's the one who what's the idea? She's a swearing wine mom,
sweary
wine mom, and the big quote from her in Rolling Stone was about how she's arrayed against toxic positivity, and. Let's just take a look at. Do we have a clip of her somewhere? Okay, here we go.
Holy shit!
I think a lot of the people that are involved in this movement are either psychopaths, sociopaths. They like it. I'm talking about like Stephen Miller, right? Right. And then you've got people that are religious addicts, and you guys, that is a real thing. Oh. Like somebody can be an alcoholic, somebody can be a drug addict. A lot of people are religious addicts
or plastic surgery addicts. I've heard about those too.
Religious addicts, like all addiction, like all addicts, sabotage things. Their default setting is to break things and create collateral damage. And I think even on the Supreme Court, we have some religious addicts. And I think in the administration, we have a ton of religious addicts, Mike Johnson, etc., Marco Rubio. And they think, okay, I'm doing a lot of bad shit in my private life. I guarantee you Sam Alito's Google search history is full of a lot of fuckery. All right. Has to be.
Unlike your lives where no one will fucking touch you.
So I'm going to do a cancelable thing now. Can we look at the clip from Brazil that she reminded me of? Here we go.
You've been promoted. It's your mother, isn't it? Pulling strings again.
Moab, it's time for you to grow up and accept responsibility. Your poor father would be appalled at your lack of promotion.
All right, never mind. I think everybody gets the idea. But
okay, but
she's a misery merchant. Like and it's popular. Like, what is that? I don't.
She's first of all, okay. Walter's going to calm down after the ostrich manic break. Okay. Jennifer Welch is this. In her own language, she's a plastic surgery addict who has a pathological aversion to body fat. She has eliminated all the body fat from her bony skeleton. And skeletons, as we know, are scary, and she's scary. Her job, as you say, is to depress us, make us miserable, and make us feel guilty for being happy. She sees addiction in everyone else except in herself. What she really is an advertisement for the life of 17 different antidepressants every morning, a visit to the surgeon every 3 months to correct the mistakes of the past surgeon, Ozempic and semaglutide and every other one of those drugs that causes food to horrify you. She is a future that we don't want, but we're afraid we can't escape. And her message is, come to me. You're sick if you don't come to me. I know I look sick. I know I look already dead. I know I look like I was reanimated from a grave by a fucking Dr. Frankenstein. My age is impossible to discern. I could be 46 and a plastic surgery act. I could be 117 taking blood transfusions. You decide.
I just don't know why people do that to themselves. But anyway, go ahead. Yeah.
They do it because they're addicts, actually. And her suggestion that we should suspect people who are having sex, dude, I'm at the point where anybody who's still having sex is my brother. Okay.
Well,
like you're still having sex with other human beings, like not robots, not dolls, not internet, not virtual reality people. Like, yeah, you might be a bit of a hypocrite, but who isn't? She's not even jealous because she wouldn't know what it feels like. But my other problem with her is this. Why would anybody organically listen to her unless they were already miserable and wanted permission? See, it used to be that what we felt guilty about was being unhappy in America. We were like, everybody around me is happy. Why can't I be?
Totally. I felt that when I was a teenager.
Now they're making us feel guilty if we're not unhappy. Now they're making us feel guilty if we're happy. What's wrong with you? What kind of addict? What kind of hypocrite? What kind of liar? What kind of sexual pervert are you pretending to be happy? In the real world, people are depressed and they're having surgeons scrape goo off their face in order to show their bone structure so they're scarier skeletons. What's wrong with you?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's this whole thing. I mean, think about some of the things that she was decrying in that clip, and I watched a few other of her episodes, so I couldn't get through a whole "I've had it," but religion is now, if you are a religious person, you're essentially a deviant now, and religious consolation is one of the things that allows people to be happy without wealth, without
it's why we're all still here, frankly.
Right.
They talk about all the wars that have been launched by religion, but they don't talk about all the people living lives of impoverished, difficulty, illness, getting through, having children, reproducing, moving into the future because of their belief in this, whatever the God might be. But that's Soviet, what you just did, Matt. That's the medicalization of religion. In other words, we're starting to see.
Oh, yeah, that was exactly what they did with psychoanalysis. But go ahead. Mm-hmm.
Yes, exactly. They're starting to take the other side and medicalizing and making psychiatric their condition. I don't have to deal with you. You're an addict. I don't have to argue with you. You're crazy. Also, if you've had it, why are you doing a podcast? How many times can I hear you've had it? When you've had it, you've had it. You give up. There's nothing more to talk about. But your problem is that other people haven't had it yet. You want them to have it too. Have had it too.
Yeah. So religion's out.
Sex.
Sex. Sort of heteronormative, marriage is out. You have the whole abolition of family movement, which
And looking at her, eating is out too.
Eating is out. Yeah, that's right. The Ozempic thing, is a big thing. There are, and then also, like sort of art and content. We mostly look at it in terms of whether or not it's problematic anymore, right? Like its only value is whether or not it's promoting the correct, politics. And art is another thing that, certainly it's one of the reasons why we talk about books in the show. And by the way, we're starting a new one this week. It's Lord of the Flies. And part of the reason we do it is to remind people that once upon a time in the pre-internet universe, and a little bit in the post-internet universe, so this kind of thing made people happy. And
it made them unhappy. Like, okay, existentialism and books like Lord of the Flies and The Fall, which we did a few weeks ago, Camus' The Fall, don't necessarily paint a rosy portrait of life, but in some way they're life affirming because they say we can understand things. We can look into patterns. We can at least render these stories in language that is itself a pleasure. In the end, maybe the great pleasure is just how eloquently we state our suffering. But she wants us to give up this way to the gas chambers, ladies and gentlemen. Only this time, it won't be guards and German shepherds ushering you to gas chambers. You'll go voluntarily because you've had it, like me. Let's all go together. Let's make a date of it. Let's make a suicide date.
Yeah, it's creepy, and I guess until now, I thought the formula was let's make everybody miserable and tell them the only way out is conformity, right? Which is generally how the internet is structured. Like if you're not thinking the appropriate thing, you're on the outs. Your traffic will go down. You will suffer a kind of not suffer, but you'll experience negative reactions in ways that will tend to not make you feel terribly good. And if you're a person who's in the media or a famous person or a politician or anything like that, if you're outside the prescribed lines, you get asked whether it's you should be promoting or platforming or normalizing or whatever it is. And most of the time I'm on the fence about the Fuentes thing, but
I'm on the fence. I'm not actually on the fence. I'm against Nick Fuentes.
Okay? Oh, no, I mean, yeah, that for sure. I'm just saying the constant hounding of people to renounce this, renounce that.
Right.
That has become an endless feature of American life, and it's become so exhausting. Trump ran against it, frankly, right? Like this whole phenomenon of people who are just surrounding you, trying to catch you up in something and make you miserable about shit and make you feel bad. And
we're gonna look back on Trump, Matt, as an old school figure who tried to, through enthusiasm and slogans and music, YMCA, dancing, tried to get everybody activated to do something. The future seems to be who can bum you out the most.
Right. Yeah. And that is such a weird way to be. And just before we move to the book, there is a healthy way to respond to all this stuff. And this gives us an excuse to look at Sydney Sweeney for a minute.
Yeah.
But she was interviewed by GQ, the actress and model, who got in trouble briefly over the summer for doing an ad about good genes. Which, I'm sorry, if you got offended about that, you have a serious problem. You're already far down the unhappiness for a living mode.
If you got offended by it, you just made money for American Eagle, because you carried the guerrilla marketing campaign to the ends of the earth. All they did was make the oldest pun in history. Okay.
Right.
And then the people who cry racism about everything decided that for some reason only white people could have good genes.
Well,
Like,
also that she was talking about her whiteness as opposed to the fact that she's,
hey man, in any color,
well,
she has good genes. In
Right.
any color, she comes to sell me Girl Scout cookies. I need to hold on to the handle.
Yeah, let me get my other credit card.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. So she's doing an interview. I think she's promoting something. I forget what it is. And so she gets asked about this, and she just refuses to answer to do the thing, right? To supplicate.
But she also gets asked by the most loathsome caricature of, straight from Ivy League to Madison Avenue style media. Like, this woman is practically seething. There's like snakes coming out of her face with her complicated hostility that she's trying to mask as like just a stalking.
Oh, I know. There's a lot going on in this clip, but yeah.
Whoa. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's want.
The criticism of the content, which was basically that maybe specifically in this political climate, like white people shouldn't joke about genetic superiority. Like, that was kind of like the criticism, broadly speaking. And since you are talking about this, I just wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about that specifically.
I think that when I have an issue that I want to speak about, people will hear.
Right on. You are America's dominatrix now. Whoa.
And there were all these people who were saying, well, that's the end of her career. No, it isn't. She's going to do great. This is something that we've been learning since the beginning, frankly, of the Trump era, which is that if you just blow off this whole thing, the actual market loves you for it. But the problem is that there's been this competition between the sort of misery bureaucracy and what we used to think of as the free market, and they've been in kind of permanent tension. But yeah, that's the way to handle it. I wish I'd understood this better earlier in my career, that you just have to say, no, fuck you. If I have something to say about it, I'll talk about it,
I hope you won't think less of me as a man, but actually practice Sydney Sweeney's expression in the mirror, because no, I did. I'll do it for you now.
That's good. That's excellent.
The pursed lips, the raised eyebrows, the lips great, the eyebrows great. So you're playing to your strengths, and the look of like, you are a bug who was brought here by people who forced me to do publicity tours, and I'm talking to you because it's in my contract. But really, I'm seeing straight through you to the palm frond behind you, because you don't exist. Okay.
Right. Exactly. So at Sean Moon 7095 says, anytime you hear someone ask a question in that up talk style, they're full of shit. Can we hear it again? Because
and before we hear it again, listen to the vocabulary, because it's up talk plus ostentatious multisyllabic stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The criticism of the content, which was basically that maybe specifically in this political climate, like white people shouldn't joke about genetic superiority. Like, that was kind of like the criticism, broadly speaking. And since you are talking about this, I just wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about that specifically.
I think that when I have an issue that I want to speak about, people will hear.
So I thought Sydney Sweeney is supposed to be the up talk airhead, California girl. Instead, journalists are now practicing that. I'm just going to give you the opportunity. What? Just say your fucking thing. I think you're a racist, are you?
Right, exactly. Just say the thing. I once knew a politician who was, let's say, scandal plagued, and I asked him if he was planning on running for office in the future, and the answer was, well, I would, but I did the things. So just do the things, you know what I'm saying? Like just ask the question. And yeah, specifically God. Oh,
I just want to give you the opportunity. So here's the thing about the left right now. They have adopted the intellectual left. At least, like Hassan Piker, he's just shocking his fucking dog and yelling at people and so on, But these recent graduates of our top 50 university left people are always giving us the opportunity to be canceled.
Right.
They're always giving us the opportunity to be hated. I'm giving you the opportunity to say something loathsome that can lead to the end of your career. Would you like to do it? No fucking way. Okay.
Would you like to talk about that specifically? No, no. I'm going to look right through you. Yeah.
The only thing Sydney Sweeney could have done better is like this. Just unbutton the top. No. This doesn't go as far as you think. She just goes like this. It's getting hot in here. What did you say?
Anyway, I just think that there's a general theme we're gonna have to explore a little bit more in the future. That there's a lot of there are phony characters in the internet. There is a general tendency to try to make us miserable for some reason I can't fully divine at this moment, but
because that's where the money is, dude.
That's where the money is, yeah.
I mean, come on, happy people don't spend.
Right.
They go on picnics. They
Right.
make love. They fucking sit and listen to their favorite record from 30 years ago instead of buying a new one.
It's true, and there is a feature of the modern internet, which is that it's very hard to get people's attention unless you're telling them something that's, you're going to die tomorrow if you don't spend the next 12 minutes reading this thing or watching this thing. And, that has a cumulative effect on audiences, and
do you ever watch pharma ads where it's unclear what exactly the disease is that the thing is treating, in other words, there'll be a whole list of things that are pretty much normal, I'm bored. You don't want to do your favorite things anymore. Da, 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 da. It's never like, maybe your mom just died. Okay. Maybe you just lost your job. Okay. No, it's something that is wrong with your brain that a pill can cure. They now control the media, the pharmaceutical industry. I hate to be this way, but I can out conspiracy anyone. And frankly, these newcomers like Nick Fuentes, get out of my way, dude. I know how things really run. You're actually causing us to stop about a third of the way down to the ground level conspiracy, which is the people who, like you just said, want to sell your happiness back to you.
Right.
Right. And the thing about Sydney Sweeney that was abhorrent to that other girl is that she's happy.
Well, exactly, and that's what comes through in the video, is that this is a person who has she's self-satisfied, and the internet hates that. It hates people who are not full of what this one paper I read about climate change called adaptive anxiety. There's no such thing as adaptive anxiety. There's happiness, and then there's being anxious and miserable, and those things are bad. So
you're in the wrong body. The world is heating up. The oceans are going to overflow. The world Jewry conspiracy has you by the balls and all your leaders, and you're never getting out. Let's see what else. Donald Trump Donald Trump.
Donald Trump, yeah.
Donald Trump again.
The end of the rules-based international order.
Right.
The next pandemic, which is what related to the ostrich thing, because that was about avian flu.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's just endless. There's just endless things we're supposed to be afraid of. There's the economic anxiety of not having enough money to start a family, and some of that.
And okay, yeah, all of this can be explained by you can't buy a house. Okay, you can't pay your rent making $100,000 in New York City. You have to have 6 freaking roommates. Those are real things. And as I say, I'd like to get back to this. I'd like to get back by discovering the demand-based roots of these phenomena.
Right.
But if we're going to look at just the phenomena themselves, the emergent phenomena, as they say, that come from the complex of problems, what I see there is the unfairness of somebody being better looking than somebody else is also a problem for them. So I propose for Mamdani's New York, the redistribution of beauty.
Beauty equity.
The redistribution of good looks. Yep.
I mean, we're laughing, but that's kind of a thing. I mean, there's been an effort to, but look, we'll
to redefine them so that they are essentially redistributed. Like, oh, you have a gaping sore on your forehead? Well, there's a group for you and an advocacy movement for you, and we've redefined that as beauty. We're all beautiful I'm a religious guy, so we're all beautiful. I'm a religious addict. We're all beautiful in God's eyes and in my eyes, but some of us are more
equal than others.
Visibly beautiful.
Right. Yes, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And that's a nice kind of beautiful to be. It would be nice. Well, look, we don't have a ton of time to talk about our new book, so we won't, because
nobody's read it yet.
Nobody's read it yet. But it's very apropos, much like the last book we read, Animal Farm. I wonder, Walter, how widely read Lord of the Flies is with people who are maybe post Gen X, because in my generation we did basically have to read this book. It was one of those things that you had to read, but I think it kind of went out of style. I'm curious what the people in the audience would say about that. This is Lord of the Flies by William Goldman.
Right. William Goldman, from the 1950s. I didn't yet look
54.
It up. 54.
Mm-hmm.
It's a book that has a post-nuclear setting. Actually, people forget
it has a lot in common with 1984. But go ahead. Mm-hmm.
Well, it seems to do with there having been a war of some kind of nuclear exchange, and somewhere in the South Pacific, a plane full of boys has gone down on an island, right? And they have to basically, well, they don't have to, but they do resurrect some form of society, some form of organization, such that they can get off the island, build signal fires, and cooperate. And so it's kind of a thought experiment in how. Okay, in the 1950s, there was a lot of anxiety about teenagers and adolescents.
Right, mods and rockers.
Yeah, well, and across the board, James Dean, Rebel Without a Cause, the Wild Bunch. Are these there were a lot of movies in which that were frankly horror movies about children and young teens. Because I think in a weird way, the people who fought World War II had a bunch of kids, or the people who'd come through depression, and they didn't recognize them.
Right.
They were suddenly the Depression era people had a crop of children who had everything and who seemed rather spoiled to them. And it was as though we went through many generations of social development really quickly, from pre-war to post-war America. And so these kids looked like aliens to a lot of people.
Yeah.
And worrying, will they grow up with the same civilizing forces acting on them, or are they, in a sense, a new generation of barbarians? That was the question. Over and over in the 1950s, Hollywood concerned itself with whether the young people are just going to get on motorcycles and kill mom and dad and form their own groups and, whatever. And Orwell was anxious about that too, in some ways, because he also knew about the indoctrination potential of the youth. The thing about the youth is that if they are aliens, they're also easily indoctrinated, and they don't have experience to temper their zeal.
Yeah, and he talked that's a big theme in 1984 with the spies, right? The Junior Anti-Sex League and all that, and some of the same kinds of crazy manias that happen in Britain and in the US in the late 50s, early 60s also happened in the 80s, right? Like, you had all those Time and Newsweek covers. What's going on in your teenager's head? The Dungeons and Dragons craze, Satanism. There was this widespread fear that I think of the boomers by now, that they were afraid of their children. They didn't understand them. But this book, I guess, is a product of that earlier generation, people who came home from the war and didn't see the same sense of commitment or social cohesion or respect for authority or lots of other things. And so it's a book that's you can take it a lot of different ways, but ultimately, and we'll give a little summary of what happens at the beginning in a second, but I think ultimately it's a story about what happens when the traditional pillars of society, like the institutional pillars, when they start to collapse, when there's no longer faith in those things. What happens in a society, which is very relevant to today, right?
It's a book about scapegoating too.
Right. Absolutely. Yes.
And scapegoating post World War II and post the Holocaust was a huge. See, up until I went to college and all through my college, the big intellectual question for the West was, how did the Holocaust happen? How did an advanced society, Germany, however humiliated it might have been after World War I, how did it go for the industrial strength murder of other human beings? And how did a modern science-based, let's not forget, Hitler was nothing if not science-based. He was so fucking science-based, you took twins into labs and cut their brains open to see things about them.
Right.
How did it fall for the scapegoating of one race as the single great problem that had held Germany back from its incredible destiny? And so answering that question was something that started right after the war, because remember, it was really only the end of the war that we opened the camps and saw what had gone on. So William Goldman attempts to answer that question by creating a kind of Eden, a tropical island where a bunch of people, parachute in. They're schoolboys, and they're British public schoolboys, which is very, very important to understand. Meaning, they're not poor. Okay.
Right.
They're not the poorest. They're not the most underprivileged. They represent, in some ways, the British establishment, the children of it, and put them on an island. And it's like all those reality shows. It's the first reality show. It's the first. That's
a good point. It really is. Yeah.
It's the first real world challenge. The first Big Brother. It's like first Survivor. That Lord of the Flies is the first reality TV show in literature that I know of, in which they stage the isolated evolution of a group dynamic such that we can see it in a test tube. And it doesn't have to do with politics per se, because it has to do with what they'd call social psychology. Who is going to lead? How are they going to establish their leadership? How are they going to protect it when it's threatened? Who will be on the inside and who will be on the outside? How will they solve problems together? How will they deal with scarcity? It's the kind of experiment that they started running in the 1950s. and went on to run with things like the Stanford Prison Experiment.
Right, exactly. Mhm.
Because the other question it asks is not just scapegoating, but how do you get people to be cruel? Where does cruelty come from? Where does murderous cruelty come from? Where does callousness come from? How do you get people to the point where they won't blink at the machine gun murder of 300 ostriches if it's done by trained marksmen at night?
Right.
And it's just a call. So it's a book about the genetics, the genealogy of cruelty, the genealogy of scapegoating. How do you, they say, other or dehumanize your brother, your schoolmate?
Yeah. And just so people have a little bit of grounding before we'll get more into it in the next next show, but basically the book starts off, the main characters, there is a handsome fair-haired boy named Ralph, who is sort of meant to be the character, I guess, that you would identify with in the book. And he's a natural leader, and he kind of summons everybody.
He's the quarterback. He's the prom king. He's
exactly.
He's the head boy, as they say.
I actually disliked him for that reason in the beginning of the book, but he grows on you as time goes on. And then there is a rival named Jack, who is thought of as the villain of the story, and he doesn't like being displaced as the leader of the island by this Ralph character, and it begins a kind of competition. And the story starts with they all gather together when Ralph blows this conch, and then there's a little bit of a descent that starts after they discover that there are pigs in the island, and they become hunters. And you're right. It should be on some level like almost like a tropical paradise story where they learn to get along, but it becomes the opposite very quickly. And I haven't read this book in a while, so
it's also a story about what happens to males.
Oh God, yes.
This is an all male story.
Yeah.
But
British male.
You feminists and you women out there, you're going to love it because it's going to confirm every one of your darkest suspicions about the other gender, let me tell you, and what it's capable of and what its weaknesses are, and its its lusts. But the other thing to remember about intellectual history in the 1950s was that everybody was under the spell of three sciences that we don't really pay as much attention to anymore. One, psychoanalysis. The idea that the mind is replaying ancient patterns in every individual life, that myths are really large-scale embodiments of personal conflicts over, lust for the mother if you're a boy and competition with the father, that in every individual life, the life of the species is somehow played out. It was also a time of a lot of concern for anthropology. How did humans? Oh, Candace is live later.
I thought that was hilarious.
What made her go live? Is she out to defend herself, or
I don't know.
Is this a podcasting emergency? Like they should have like a lesser alarm, not the civil right or civil disorder broadcast, but like podcasting emergency. Candace versus Fuentes, or no, Candace and Fuentes.
Right, there should be like an internet conch.
Right.
Yeah. Exactly.
But anyway, the idea here is that he's going to run an anthropological model of how society went from hunting to civilization. So that's why the hunting pigs becomes the big central deal.
Right.
And the last sort of pseudoscience that, as we consider it, but at the mid-century, high science, was a science of kind of mythology, semiotics, and so on. And what happens in this story is that power creates images of itself. In other words, Lord of the Flies has a very specific meaning. It comes from the Bible. It is the actual translation of Satan.
I didn't know that.
Satan is the Lord of the Flies, the Lord of the dead, the Lord of feces, the Lord of things that flies eat and come off of. The Lord of the Flies
Whoa.
is the devil. So this book, in a complicated British way, should be called The Devil.
And well, there's an appearance of a certain character that seems to personify that late in the book. But anyway,
the question is, in Lord of the Flies, where does evil come from?
Right.
Where does evil come from? How does it grow from a field of just a bunch of British schoolboys? And he does a pretty persuasive job of, Orwell didn't have theological concerns. C.S. Lewis did. We talked about him, but a few weeks ago. But this is a deeply theological, deeply religious, mythological exploration of what is it about us that always goes wrong.
And also, I think it's kind of an exploration of just how societies break down, how things fall apart. I mean, we were going to do that book, oddly enough, but why doesn't it work? What happens with these kids? Why can't? What causes breakdowns? What causes savagery? What causes all these things? And there are a lot of questions, I think, already. I mean, early in the book that feel like they're very fresh in this moment. So anyway, hopefully we'll get a little farther in the book next time around. But
once again, it's not very long. So anybody who's intimidated by the idea of reading another book, in 2 weeks you can read this whole book, in your spare time. And I read it a few years ago, and I will say this: I think it's a more explanatory and deeper read of our situation than a lot of the others we've discussed, only because it deals with humanity as such, not necessarily certain political movements.
Right.
Or
well, it goes without saying that those books always last longer and have more relevance, and even that's kind of lost on this. No, I shouldn't say that. I'm being a fogey. It's a really interesting, relevant book. We're gonna have fun with it. Anyway, thanks everybody for hanging out. And you know what? I'm not going to apologize for making a plastic surgery joke about that person. So, but Walter,
why should you, dude? It's not. Listen. She is the one who wants to do the war on happiness. If she thinks she can sit there and be untouched by it, all these angry, upset people that you're creating, it's going to come back at you. And I'm going to go first.
Exactly. All right, everybody. Thanks a lot. And we'll see you later this week.